Kat here from the King's Road in London, a rather swanky pub, and we're here to meet John Carter.
Hi.
And Alex Blanco.
How you doing?
So, I mean, you built your own studio when you were 20. You had your first exit about 15 years old, am I right?
Yeah, I was born in Liverpool, and I'd always loved soul. I'd always loved reggae. Just where I grew up, I was just surrounded by reggae. And then really early hip hop, and then house kind of just before I left Liverpool to go to New York. House kind of came on the scene. And that more than anything kind of opened my eyes to the idea that you could actually sort of make your own music, because it was names that I hadn't heard of. It was a lot more kind of anonymous, so you just got this feeling that there's something a bit more backroom about it.
You certainly drew from your dancehall influences in the early days, and you draw from all sorts of influences and still do.
Yeah, I think we've got there's a huge crossover, which is it's quite complementary. Between the two of us, pretty much we run the gamut of pretty much every kind of music that's been big not big necessarily, but has been popular or has been innovative. So we've got the same attitude, and the kind of the few gaps in the just sort of crazy schizophrenic musical experience we've got. We kind of that there is a crossover that kind of fills the gaps for each other.
Obviously, you both work under other pseudonyms as well. You've got the Junior Cartier thing, and you've got you've both got a few, to be fair, and you've particularly as well the Blanco stuff as well, which is much more sort of very dark, minimalist techno sort of.
It's proper techno, really. It's because I've always liked really kind of tribally beats, and one of my favorite things about the early house music was it was kind of very much 909 influenced. It kind of, I think, much more than a lot of dance music in the intervening 10 years, 15 years until now. It had that kind of side-to-side appeal, what me and John like to call the up. It's kind of bass lines that make you go up instead of on the one. So you just kind of, it's just, we've got the same silly dance really when we're drunk, let's face it.
So you both sort of fairly self-taught, and I mean the kit that you must have been starting out on back in those days must be very different to the sort of studio setup that you have now. What was that first studio setup like?
I've kept a lot of my initial stuff now. Once you don't need a whole room full of gear now, and there's a lot of effects units that would just sort of add noise now that you can actually get better versions of in soft delays and stuff like that. But I keep a 909, an 808, 303, SH09, and that's the undercut, and a lot of guitar pedals that just don't seem to be replicated at all.
I mean, is that something that you find is some of the old analog kit is just not replicated in soft synth?
The hats on the 808 I find just so sharp. I never found them quite the same, but mainly the SH09, the bass. I know a lot of producers that always keep SH09s or SH02 for subs, and they're on every single track sitting underneath. It's
I think it's
invaluable piece of kit.
You tend to treat them. You tend to treat them as something that you sample and record, because at the end of the day, everything's going to end up digital anyway. So people, if you're using samples of a genuine 808, then it's going to sound like a genuine 808 because it's all been digitized at some point anyway. It's working with it's working with raw material and actually having that tiny bit of grunge.
It's true. There's something inspiring about having it in the room, though. About actually using it.
I mean, in the interest of full disclosure, I think John's kept hold of a lot of his old kit. I've tried to borrow a lot of his old kit, so
permanent loan.
There's certain things like the MPC Akai, which it was kept for it's got incredible shuffle patterns, which now can be emulated. So a lot of stuff is now just within a computer, but I'd still say like the SH09's just unrepeatable. You can't recreate that bass. I really don't think so.
And Roger Lynn did personally sign your MPC.
He did,
using a machine in Japan. The big difference for me was that in the old days, when I first started, I made the classic mistake of saying, this is my budget, this is what I'm going to spend, I'm going to accumulate massive equipment, and then realizing I had absolutely no idea how to use it. So I was I started making tracks right away and started releasing tracks almost straight away. But there was a level of depth that was missing. The creativity was there. The ideas were there. But I think what was lacking was that kind of just that virtuoso performance that you can do on one piece of equipment. And in the old days,
it's about picking up one thing and
just getting to know it inside out really, really well. And I think that's quite difficult to do these days, because I think people who start these days have everything right in front. There's so many soft synths available, and people seem to think they need a million soft synths. And that original advice, which I ignored, which actually if I'd followed my own advice, then my tracks would have been a lot better a lot sooner. Every single bit of equipment in your studio, there's someone out there that can just show you things that you didn't even know it did. I think one of the big things that's been lost from modern music is that, people always say, in the old days, there's so much rubbish music around now, it's too easy to make. The truth of it is, anyone who was on a promo list in the old days used to get sent an awful lot of cack vinyl. But now there is even more. But I think the same thing happened with the mixtapes. In the old days, I was living in New York, but the way I discovered really kind of early hardcore, really early jungle, just as it was becoming jungle. I've got LSD tapes and Groove Rider tapes from '91, and these were the things that taught me what DJing was meant to be. It's just someone attacking two turntables and never leaving it alone for 30 seconds. It would just be another track, and you could even as you're putting another in.
Acapella that would go over a jungle thing.
But you knew where to go for them, and there was a certain element of quality control, because these were the DJs who were playing in the clubs, and so there was that kind of pseudo A&R process even with the mixtapes. Whereas now you've got SoundCloud's fantastic, but you've got so many tapes, and where do you even begin? So it's kind of I don't want to sound like one of these old men that sits around moaning about how much better it used to be in their day, because I do think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, the drawbacks. And so I think I'm glad that there is that much choice, but I think there needs to be ways that we can actually figure out. I think there's certain forums, there's certain websites where people say, and I think the rating system is a good way to do that. But I don't think we've kind of found a balance yet where that element of quality control comes through. I think Beatport's trying to do it as well by being much stricter about who they allow, whether new labels, how many releases, how many sales you have. And I think we're in a transition phase, but I think we're heading in the right direction, to be honest.
And also it was your remix of the Happy Mondays as well that became this sort of theme to 24-hour party people, which is a bit of a sort of tale of a generation in a way.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I did 2 remixes, I did a real acid house mix of that as well. But they had just a lot of times when you remix something, you get it all up and you just sort of, I call it all the sugar. You get everything there, all in, and then it's when you strip it down, start taking things away.
Call it sugar.
I don't call it. If I'm in a room with you, I just don't use the word sugar.
Yeah, with the sample collection, we sort of treated it as a process where we kind of figure out, we listen to music we like, the kind of stuff we're making at the moment. But we've kind of spent so much time doing it. It's actually been quite consuming. But the thing is,
we learned a lot.
We're going to use an awful lot of our own loops. Of course, we'll pay the license fee. Of course, we'll make sure we buy it.
I'll buy a copy. But we've learned so much in the actual processing of these sounds and stuff that is actually going to go into the production of this new.
You're actually getting the sound that we've been sort of crafting. There's a lot of usable stuff, but there's also you're going to be getting probably an awful lot of our forthcoming tracks and remixes because we love the stuff.
Boys, thank you so much for managing to sit still for 5 minutes for Loop TV, and keep an eye out for the guys' new pack out on Loop Masters.
It's John Carter and Alex Blanco's Block Party Essentials.